Welcome, everybody, to the Loud and Drunk podcast. This is Dan. Moses, we have a certain love for a little city up in the Midwest called Chicago, and we're going to tell some stories about it. Would you like to give us a sneak peek of some of your tales of Chicago?
It's the city of brotherly wind, or something to that effect, and I've had some delightful times. In a small sect of it, I may or may not be famous.
Just like you're famous in Japan, aren't you a part of the Yakuza?
I may or may not be. Yes.
No one knows.
That's a little more blurry to me than the Chicago trip, but yes.
Justin.
Yes. Been to Chicago several times with some of you. I love that fucking city. It's amazing, and I can't wait to talk about some of our bullshit stories that we've had.
I am Robert Lamb. Chicago is a very important part of my life, and I'm just excited to talk about it.
But before we get into all of our stories about Chicago, you know what Chicago has a lot of? Good food.
Mm-hmm.
We do talk about food a lot on this podcast, right, guys?
We do.
Pretty much every
Almost
episode.
it's brought up at least every episode.
So let me tell you about one of the best places around. Head on over to Stonefire Grill in Beechwood and enjoy the best wings in Ocean County. Whether it's date night or just headed to the bar to watch the game, Stonefire's atmosphere and delicious menu will leave you impressed. I also would like to take this time to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. We are on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. If you are on YouTube and Rumble, smash that like button, leave us a comment, share this video with your friends, and get in on the conversation by joining us on social media at Loud and Drunk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So guys, we've all been to Chicago, but in an indirect way, I was the catalyst of everyone going to Chicago.
You really were.
I don't make it any secret that I was in the Navy.
No.
I actually mentioned it. Like, I think it could be a part of. It could be a part of like a Loud and Drunk drinking game.
Yeah.
Dan mentioned
You were in the Navy?
and
Mark that off on your bingo card.
100%.
I got a T.
please, they can't be rushed to the hospital already.
sorry,
We're only a few minutes into this
Pacing,
podcast.
pacing. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, they're going to be taking shots, and it's just going to like it's like 10 in the morning with some of these people.
Nobody listens. They're all just drunk.
That's probably the best way to listen to this podcast.
That's fair. That's how I do it.
But Chicago is a little north of Great Lakes, which
Yeah.
is where Navy boot camp is. And so I don't have a tremendous amount of stories from initially being there because you don't have many freedoms when you go through boot camp.
That doesn't sound like America at all.
Well, I mean, you gotta lose your freedoms to learn how to appreciate them, Moses.
Well, they lose their freedom so they can defend ours.
Yes.
What is that?
Freedom ain't free, baby.
Yeah.
One of the first times you're actually allowed to go out in town is when you graduate from boot camp. So not only did my dad and my stepmom, and there's actually a whole story to that as well, did they show up, but also Mr. Rob Lamb, even though we have just met for the first time on this podcast, you were there with,
I was there.
with a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Ed.
Yeah.
Not...
The horse.
Yeah, no, that is true. We took the train out. We left from New York Penn Station, and I had never been there before.
How long is that train trip?
It was 23 hours.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I thought it was 18. Jeez.
Yeah, like you could have just driven there in that
It
time.
was,
We have.
I know.
Yeah, it wasn't in the cards at the time. But no, it was 23 hours. So, I mean, overall, it was fairly uneventful. We basically departed from New York Penn Station. I will say that I'm like a fan of like just trains in general. I just think they're fun for whatever reason because I'm a boring person. But it was like delightful for the most part. Like it was slow moving and, it took twice as long as taking a car. But it was a fun general journey.
You're not selling the train to me.
That said, I as you know, I did hesitate about telling this part of the story. So we were in coach, which means that when you're on like an Amtrak train, you only have like a chair. So it's like the equivalent of like first class on like Spirit. So it's pretty shitty. It's just not good. If you get like a proper like first class on a train, then you get a sleeper car and you've got like a place where you can do the things you want to do. I didn't have that, so I was there with at the time I was with a dear friend Ed and at the time my beau. So we ended up getting stopped at. They had to stop the train somewheres in like Ohio
For your papers?
No, I
Show us your papers, please.
That would have been great. We stopped somewheres like in Ohio because they told us there was a lightning storm, which I don't know why a train has to stop for that.
Ohio is terrible.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't know why that was the case. But anyways, that's the first time and only time that I've ever gotten head on a train. So that was,
good for you.
that was pretty great. I'm not going to lie to you.
So what is that? The sea level club?
I guess, yeah. And it's like weird because like you're surrounded by people. I was not the one to institute this as being a thing, by the way. I was all about it once it started.
Well, of course.
But like I wasn't like I was unenthusiastic because like you're sitting right next to somebody. It's very awkward.
Sorry to interrupt, but unenthusiastic blowjob bandit.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It was like I was into it, but like at the same time, I'm like, here we are. So anyways, that was the highlight of the journey there. And then, I feel like that was, the gist of the journey was, for the most part, it was just that. We really, I got head on a train, and
This is why we were shadow banned on YouTube.
Yeah.
because of the head on the train?
Yes.
Jesus
We finally
Christ.
figured it out.
Bunch of fucking prudes. But after that, it was pretty smooth sailing. That said, 23
That's
hours.
wild.
That is I
insane.
It's a long
thought
time.
it would be faster for some reason,
No,
but
they have to,
they have
because
to
you
stop.
one, you have to stop, and two, when you're like trying to get through the Appalachian Mountains, it's extremely slow going. So it's just like you're
a
moving
lot
at
of
like
twists and
it's like
turns, yeah.
5 miles an hour. So like you spent many hours where you're just really not traveling at all because you just have to navigate your way through that.
is it
That's just the way the track
cheaper
goes.
than driving? Like the ticket to get on.
I don't know what it cost at the time. I think that in terms of fuel, in terms of fuel versus the cost of the ticket, I think they're very comparable. I know that taking like a coach train ticket is cheaper than taking a coach plane ticket.
Right.
But it's the time
yeah.
that you're sacrificing, and it's harder to get head on a plane. So,
All right.
So it was baked into the idea.
Dan,
I'm saying on a plane they have a club for that. On a train, I just made one up.
That said, I did enjoy the train ride more, not just because of that. But no, overall, I just found it to be just like more pleasant, but it takes fucking forever.
They got booze on that?
What's that?
They got booze on that, like that. Also,
Not when you're in coach.
And
oh, really?
Also, too, we were all 19.
I was about to
at that
say,
time.
like 19
Oh,
years
I
old.
didn't understand when or how old, but
It's just, not for nothing, like myself being on that, besides that one little highlight, it's just that you're fucking sitting in a chair
Yeah.
for 20 fucking hours. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, that'd drive me insane.
Yeah, it's not fun. And there's basically no stops. I think we stopped once. And it wasn't like to pick up people. It was just like whatever
a
that
routine
is.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Maintenance and
fueling
whatnot,
or
yeah.
something. I don't know.
Fueling.
I don't know what the fuck it is. But yeah, it was along those lines. And then we arrived in beautiful, windy, what would you call it?
The city of brotherly wind.
The city of brotherly.
No, go on, Porky. You got it. Well, that's all, folks.
What on earth?
Like and subscribe.
That was my first journey there. I don't think we really did much for that. But
No,
that was
we
that was
did-
your first year there.
It was
Or your first whatever there.
I graduated from boot camp, so that's legitimately like the first day they let you off base.
Yeah.
Because,
I was gonna say that's when I saw you in your fucking like the dress whites.
Yes.
Yeah, you were doing your graduation.
Yeah, I was doing my graduation.
I remember thinking
Yeah.
how gay that was. No offense.
Well, I always hated that stupid hat, like the Dixie Cup hat.
Right.
That's why I wanted to be an officer, but then like I buried myself before I was dead to like apply to the Naval Academy.
Do they have a different hat?
Yes, officers wear. a different
Clearly,
hat.
they have a
Maybe they don't have any hat. I don't know.
Also, too, you get a different hat if you make chief. They changed the uniforms like a billion times since I've been out, but back in those days, you got not a cool looking hat, but a better hat.
Right.
When you were when you made chief.
It doesn't look like you're serving soft serve ice cream.
So I mentioned this before. My dad, my stepmom went to that as well. My stepmom broke her femur.
Oh,
Right before going, like she was with her granddaughter, and like her granddaughter was about to like fall into like a pothole or something like that, and like
A well
deep,
or
like-
something, who
Yeah,
knows?
something like that. And then in order to
Jane.
in order to make sure she didn't do that, she grabbed her, but then she lost her balance getting her away from it, and
Oh
she
my
fell
God.
right in, and she broke her leg so badly that for. I think it was like years after this, she still had a hobble. Like she was using a cane for a little bit.
sucks.
And
It's a hard one to recover from.
and
Yeah, it is.
So my dad drove the entire way himself, which my dad's a pro, so like driving's no problem with him. But he had his wife in the back seat the entire time.
Was she laying? Or
No, I guess she had to sit like because it was on it's the back seat, so she
Yeah.
just had to have her leg propped up like that. But
Because I would imagine that drive he would have to make a lot
multiple
of stops just
yeah.
for her to stretch out.
I think he said it took, because I talked to him a bit a while ago, like over the holidays, and I think he said it took him about, because I think I said 18 hours. I'm like, it didn't take me 18 hours. It took me like 15 or something like that.
Yeah, the drive there is like 13, 14 hours if you do it straight.
Yeah. It was actually pretty funny because I don't remember who I ran into first. I think I might have ran into my dad, my stepmom first. I had no idea who they were because my dad was always clean shaven. This was the first time, and since when my stepmom broke her leg, he stopped shaving. He was just
Didn't have the time.
He didn't have the time. He was just taking care of her, going to work and all that stuff.
I didn't know if he was saying this is my weird form of solidarity.
No, that's what 18 hours of driving does to you.
So he never shaved, and I'm like, so I'm looking for like whoever might show up to this, and I see a man with like a goatee, and I see a woman in a wheelchair, and I'm like, oh, those are my parents. I don't recognize my own parents.
What has happened to me?
Yeah.
And then I think we ran into you and Ed and your beau at the time. And then I think we just like drove around for a little bit because you guys, you had to just like turn right back around and like catch the next train.
Yeah,
You didn't stay for a bit?
We did walk around for a bit because we have photographic evidence of, us walking around.
Yeah. We did spend like a limited amount of time, I think, because I got lost with Ed at one point.
Yeah.
And it's like it's very cloudy in my mind at this point, but we must have stayed for at least an evening because I know that myself and Ed we got completely turned around, and I'm actually the guilty party in this, and I'll own up to it because we were like they have maps around the city,
yes,
and the maps it's a fucking map, it tells you where you're supposed to go. Now, what I didn't know is that they adjusted the maps to give you like a more clear idea of north and south and such like that.
Real quick, are you talking about the second time that you came?
How many times did I go with Ed?
Twice.
Oh,
I think we're talking about it. I think we're talking about the next time. Which
You
we
forgot one of those times.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of them's a blur then.
I don't remember you guys being there. I remember we were able to spend some time, but I remember you guys had to go. Yeah. And then I went with my parents because like there was like a tradition that they would just because my brother was in the army, so like they went to his graduation, and there's like always photographic evidence of us just falling asleep because as soon as because like
you're finally allowed to.
Well, in boot camp too, those racks suck. Rack meaning bed. Yeah. And so when you actually like eat real food out in town and you go to like a hotel, you're like, oh my God, this is what like it's supposed to be like.
This is what people eat.
Yeah. So
I'm a human again.
I remember going back to the hotel room with my dad, my stepmom, and I was just like, at that point I was gassed because you're doing all this stuff. And I think they rented The Last Samurai.
And that Tom Cruise joint?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was just out like a light.
Yep.
No, that makes sense. I do that too.
You rent that sometimes.
I put it on and just go right. Like I just put it in. I hear the disc go into the drive, and then I'm asleep.
Wow.
There's a lot
Immediately.
There's a lot to that graduation because since you're wearing those damn summer whites, I remember when we were all getting ready because you have to do your formation stuff to begin all that, and like everyone's just like peeing from a distance because if you get that splatter, you get that splashback on those, you're gonna look.
I've heard you talk
fool.
about this. Yeah.
Not only was boot camp in Great Lakes in Illinois, my A school, this was the great thing about it too. You graduate and you get to know where you're going. Since I was going to be an electrician, they're like, oh yeah, your A school's across the street.
Yeah.
Is that what A school is? Your
Yeah, it's where you
Your
get the
next
training
step.
for the next step. It's the training that you get for the job that you're going to be in the Navy. Meanwhile, all these motherfuckers that had aviation jobs got to go to Pensacola, and I'm like, you sons of bitches.
I love one of my favorite things about because you're like obviously very passionate about the military and so on and so forth. And one of my little passions in life is that you did so much of this. Like you're fucking gung-ho about that shit. And like they're commercials, like the Navy commercials, military commercials are all about traveling. Like go and fucking see everything. And you saw two places that you could have easily just gone to.
Yeah.
And they gave you nothing.
Because I've been to both of them, and the one is worse than the other.
All right, just so we don't leave the audience hanging.
right,
The only
right,
places that I went to when I was in the service outside of the continental United States was Antigua and St. Martin. We will get into that at a later time.
Are you going to leave Newport News out of this?
That's not a part of any
It's
place.
just
It's more dangerous than Baghdad.
That's a land beyond space and time.
It honestly is. I went there as a civilian. I'm like, no, why would I go here?
But getting back to Chicago, so A school is in Great Lakes. So I didn't spend a lot of time in Chicago coming out of boot camp. But in A school, one of my favorite bands of all time finally got back together. Sammy Hagar got back with Van Halen. And I was like, son of a bitch.
Yep.
Now I have an objective. I can't leave too quickly. Because, like, A school in Great Lakes, it was all, at that time, they just switched from having, like, a teacher and a proctor and all that to it just being, a self-paced type of computer learning thing.
Gotcha.
So you could go as fast as you want or as slowly as you want.
No shit.
So I wasn't trying to go too slow. But I also was like, I already just bought tickets to this Van Halen concert.
I have to stretch it out to a deadline point.
I don't want to be here too long, but I also have to I can't leave too early. Like, I can't just leave this.
That's wild. That's wild.
So when you get out of boot camp, you go to A school. They don't immediately give everything back to you. You're allowed to roam the base freely, but you can't leave the base.
Okay.
And so I think that's called Phase 1 Liberty. So you're allowed to, like, walk out of the barracks.
Right.
Phase 2 is that you're allowed to leave the base, but you don't have overnight liberty. So you have to come back, by a certain time.
Right.
Like before,
There's a curfew.
I think before taps. So you got to show up before that.
Gotcha.
That happens at the beginning of the morning.
Taps is when they played, like,
This
but
song,
it's the end of the night. So you got to come back before
okay.
that.
I thought
I
that
might
was a
be
morning
wrong
thing,
in that.
but-
I think it might have been an actual time.
The equivalent is the street light thing our parents did
I think
to us.
I think you might have had to be back by what we called balls, but 0000, which is midnight.
Gotcha.
And then the last one is overnight liberty. That's Phase 3. I only needed Phase 2 to go see Van Halen. But I ended up, like, working my ass off just to get Phase 3, just in case something fucking happened.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's a Van Halen concert. Who knows?
So I bought 2 tickets. I had no friends. And then here's the thing, too. I'm 19. You can't have a car at A school because you're, a piece of shit enlisted. Like, why do you need a car?
Right.
So I had to rely on public transit. So I legitimately had to walk from the base to the train station. That's not that far. And then take the train and then catch a bus to the United Center. There's a
That's
fair
weird
amount.
that there's not an L going right to that you couldn't have just taken.
No, I don't think so. Not with where I was coming from. So I ended up having to do all that. I was amazed. First of all, that it actually all worked so swimmingly the first time because I was so like, you guys know me. I have not really changed from 19.
No.
I've just always been high strung. Like, this is not going to work. Prepare for someone with a knife to come on the bus. Something is going to happen. And then all of a sudden they drop me off at the United Center and they're like, here you go. And I'm like, you fucking serious? I'm here? All right, well, I got here super early because I was not anticipating this working out. Let me see if I can sell this ticket. Go up to a scalper. Hey, man, I got an extra ticket. What can I get for it? And he gives me some bullshit price. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm just going to have an extra seat.
Yeah.
I go in.
I like to put my feet up.
It's actually pretty funny, too, because those Van Halen shows, I don't know if it was the one I went to.
Okay.
But they did 2 nights in Chicago that time around. And one of them is notorious for Eddie Van Halen being so fucked up that the crowd started booing him.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like,
Wow.
it was like a notorious fucking, like, because he was really jacked up on that tour. Like,
Gotcha.
He was super drunk, super, like, strung out.
Full-cell
from, like,
problem.
Yeah. I didn't notice that. It was all rose-tinted glasses. Like, I was just
You were just happy to
like, Sammy Hagar started playing, like, one of his solo songs acoustically. I saw everybody go into the fucking bathroom. I'm like, I am not leaving this seat. This is awesome. And remember back in the day, you could fucking do that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, when you're
Back in the day.
19 years old, you're going to a concert, and I'm like, that concert was like 2.5 hours. I didn't have to pee once.
Yep.
That's amazing. and so
Glory days.
Show's over. Obviously super jacked. I got to see my favorite fucking band playing a whole show. Never thought that was going to happen. Thought they were just going to be bitter old men and never play a fucking show ever again together. Now I got to get back.
Oh, shit.
And so got to catch that same bus.
Yep.
That goes all right. Got to catch that same train. I think I had to wait a little bit. Memory's a little fuzzy. It's almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
But then I remember, and this definitely happened. I fell asleep on the train.
Oh.
I don't remember how long it was. It couldn't have been that long because when I wook up, you've been in that situation before where you've fallen asleep, maybe it was behind the wheel or on a plane, whatever. Not a plane, but like, did I miss my stop?
You don't know how I live. No, you don't.
Scientologists.
You wake up and you're like, oh fuck.
Oh, yeah. Full panic.
Where
Full
am
panic.
I?
Full panic.
And like you're just like on pins and needles, waiting for them to announce, like, all right, what's the next stop? Am I on the same track? Am I on the same track? And
Am I
they're
in the same city?
yeah, because I'm under that pressure where I have to get back to base.
Right.
I can't. I have to make morning muster.
Yeah.
Even if I have Phase 3 Liberty, I still have muster at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
So eventually they're like, oh, yeah, no, that's like the next train. I'm like, all right, so I have at least 2 more stops.
Right.
Like equations going through his brain.
Yeah, it's like the scene from Hangover where he's counting cards.
Yeah.
I get back, and I think I got back to my rack at 1 in the morning.
Oh, oof.
And I was just
Was
like,
that in time?
oh, yeah, it was in time because I had overnight liberties.
Yeah.
That was my little excursion. And then I couldn't leave after that, too. I could speed up a little bit in terms of my self-learning or whatever. But Mr. Lamb over there showed up with friend of the show, Mr. Pat Gushing.
Yes.
Former guest.
And also Ed was there as well. I believe it was 2 young ladies who also joined in that, that
It
trip.
sounds right. The memory is a little hazy.
20 years ago.
20 years is rough.
Long time now. Yeah.
Now this one was I was able to, since I had that Phase 3 Liberty, I could go out in town because it was over the weekend.
Right.
So I didn't have, as long as like you guys in my barracks knew, like my LPOs and all that stuff knew, like I'm gonna be back on Monday. They're like, oh yeah, have a good time. Side note. Now that I'm actually remembering this, I think it was actually, I don't know if it was the LPO or the LCPO. So LPO leading petty officer or lead petty officer, LCPO lead chief petty officer.
Right.
One of them kept calling me Doug because I don't want to dox myself,
Right.
but my name, my last name, which is what you go by in the military, it sounds so much like a magician.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. And I know how much you hate it.
And so he called me Doug this whole time, and I'm like, that's not my name. And it's like, yeah, but your last name's like his name. And I'm like, I don't want to have this discussion.
Right.
It's kind of like low-key offensive.
All fair, you're going to have to explain that because I don't know who that is.
Oh, come on, buddy.
I'll say on that voyage.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm off on this one again. The memories they're definitely they come and go.
We drank him away, buddy.
We did. Yeah.
No, you're unlocking core memories right now.
So yeah, right. So on that one, I don't remember a tremendous amount, but I do remember that when I was with Pat for that one, was that the one where we stayed at like the world's shittiest fucking like trap house essentially?
I thought it was just a regular hotel, I thought.
Is that the one where
was it a shooting
where there
gallery?
was a homeless man that we ran from?
I was not a part of that. That was
know
you
you
and
weren't a-
Pat.
Yeah.
That's the story
Is that the
I
same
heard
voyage?
from Pat.
Yeah, it was the same voyage. And it was also the one that you were talking about because I was with you and Ed when we were having this discussion about the map. So either one of those stories,
All right,
go
so
ahead.
which one of the what was the sequence of that? Which one of those happened first?
Well, I believe, since the homeless man thing happened at night.
Okay,
So
well, that I know, yeah.
So the one
I
with
remember the stories individually.
Ed, yourself, and myself.
Yeah.
When we were walking around, like I don't even know what the hell we were trying to go for. We were trying to go to the Sears Tower or something.
All right, so that part of it then I do know. So let me.
Were you guys of age on this
No,
one?
we were still 19.
Still,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
all
I'm
right.
getting
So
confused,
the homeless one then I'll tell first because that story is actually pretty brief. You were not there. You were back at base or whatever it was. And,
I was at the hotel room with the girls.
Oh, fair enough. Well, this is the one where. Oh yeah. So you stayed at the hotel room where we went to go and get like cards. I think that we went. We literally like left to go and get playing cards.
You could go ask the concierge for that.
We were like, we're just going to fucking chill at the hotel. Let's go and get some playing cards. And we leave, and we stayed at an affordable hotel. And we were children. So that was like, affordable means that you're in the hood. And I remember Pat and I are walking down the sidewalk, and we're like not far from the hotel. We're like basically like right there. We've walked maybe a block or two, and there's a lot of seedy things that we're observing, and we're just like, let's keep it chill. Let's just like keep walking the way that we're walking, that kind of thing. And
we cool.
Yeah. And we're approaching, this is August. I do remember that. It was August. And we're approaching a man who is, I mean, he looks homeless, but he's definitely wearing 8 winter coats. And
as one does in Chicago.
As one does. Yeah.
In August.
Yeah.
I mean, it's windy for a reason.
It's about 80 or 90 degrees out, and he's wearing many, many winter coats, and it's observable from a distance. And as we approach this man, because like Pat like mumbled something to me, and it's like I don't really like know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to keep walking. I'm like, that's what it is. And as we like approach this man, he's eyeballing us like super hard, And
Well, Pat is so white that he's almost clear.
Pat's white as fuck.
He's almost clear.
So I'm like,
We love you, Pat.
And I'm
Yeah.
at like a
He
point
stands out in the dead of night.
yeah. And I'm at like a point in my life where I'm not like willing to lean into the black thing as I do now. So like at the time I'm like, oh, I'm just like a little white boy.
You were fairly Poindexter back then.
Yeah. So now it's like I lean into that shit. I'm like, what's up, Negro? But like back in those days,
I don't think that would have gotten you out of the situation.
probably wouldn't have got me out of
that
shit.
probably would have been worse.
Might have made it worse. Yeah. So anyway, so we like basically like this guy's eyeballing us and he's slowing down and we're just walking and he's slowing down and like we pass him and he's now stopped. So he's like 2 feet behind us and he turns around and he like mumbles something and we both do the stupid move of
I think I remember what he said.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Exactly. You're exactly right. He says that. And like, I don't know if it was me or Pat. It's one of those things where your memory gets cloudy, but it was either me or Pat was like, what? and
I ain't going to say it twice.
yeah. And he proceeds to just like get into a run. And I looked at Pat and I remember this so well. Same as you remember what was said.
Yeah.
I remember looking Pat right in his eyes. And my immediate thought, and I've said this to him after the fact, my immediate thought, I swear to fucking God, I looked him right in the eyes. And my only thought wasn't about him. I thought to myself, Pat runs so much faster than you. And I fucking booked it before he did.
He'll catch up.
I just started running. And my next memory is Pat passing me. he just
That's
runs
great.
right past, like he was the Flash. Like that's the way that it felt to me. Like he just like breezed, like he was running like he was running like 100 miles an hour. And I'm just like,
You're doing the Chariots of Fire run.
yeah. And this fucking like geriatric homeless man with 10 winter coats
Yeah,
on
30
is
pounds of
right on
clothing
my
on.
heels. Yeah. And I'm just running. I'm like, am I gonna have to fucking fight somebody tonight? Like who clearly fights better than me because he lives on the streets. And thank God he dropped off, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
But then Pat and I finally found Pat. He was like 10 blocks away, and he's like eating a sandwich and living his best life.
Halfway through his meal.
Yeah. And he's like, oh man, that was a tough run. And he's like, oh, you want to do another one? Whatever. And
It's like, no, we got to wait here. I ordered a souffle.
But basically we ended up, I think we mutually agreed. It was like, we need a weapon before we go back because that man is still out there because we were idiot kids.
That man probably saved your life.
He probably fucking did. And we ended up buying like a commemorative fucking baseball bat for the Cubs.
You bought like the little mini
It was a
Louisville.
mini-
the ones that they
a
hand
mini
out at
baseball bat,
game day,
which
yeah.
not for nothing. You got a lot of wield on that. You could fuck somebody up with that
Oh,
shit.
yeah, that's a
It's like a
formidable
little-
weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little mini baton.
And we did find the playing cards as well.
Yeah.
But
I
it was
remember you
just
coming
like,
back
it
full.
was such like a white boy story. It was so absurd. But
It's bewildering to me that you had to go so far just to find a pack of cards.
well, because there's nothing in that neighborhood because it's only homeless people.
Right.
Yeah. I actually didn't sleep well that night, so I actually walked around like an idiot, and I never ran into anything like that. So like nobody chased me. I just walked around like I was a lunatic.
Yeah.
And then people were like, "Oh, that guy's clearly insane."
I think it was Dan that was chasing us. Actually.
He's like, oh, I'm gonna razz him.
It all makes sense.
Get out of here!
That's why I remember. The other, I actually remember you guys coming back with the bat and the cards too.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what happened? And you guys explained all that. And we were like, oh, wow, you are 0 for 2 so far on this one, man.
It was a bad gamble.
I remember that night too. It was actually pretty funny. We watched the Punisher. The one with Tom
Which,
Jane.
the
The
television-
one Tom
okay.
Jane one,
Yeah.
I was like, I remember distinctly because I remember that we talked about this off mic one of the last times we saw each
Yeah.
other. I don't like the comedic relief characters. in
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, are they really necessary? And Pat and the two girls looked right at me and almost in unison said, yes. And I was like, okay. Well, it looks like I'll just have to shut my mouth.
Learn your place.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another. We'll just discuss
we'll
Punisher on the Patreon.
Yeah. The other part that you were going to mention was the story of Jesse White Way.
Oh my God. So we kind of part ways. So we've got this group, and myself And so it was a small group of us, essentially.
It was a group of 6.
Exactly.
So it was yourself, myself, and Ed.
Yeah.
We went one way.
We went
Pat
one way.
and the girls
exactly.
went another way.
Pat and the girls go another way. So Pat's the smartest one of us is the conclusion of the story before we get there. So it's
But don't bury the lead.
well, then we know where this is going.
We know, but the audience
the audience knows how dumb we are. So anyways, so the 3 of us think that we know the better way to get to one place. And basically,
well, let me lay this out. You and Ed are in conflict.
That's fair. You're not guilty of this. Yeah.
You and Ed are in conflict of how to get to, I believe, the Sears Tower?
Yeah.
And I'm just shutting my mouth because I'm just happy to be off base.
So you're just minding your own P's and Q's, and you're going to go with whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Ed and I are both being like stupid alpha males, and we both know the right way to do this thing.
I remember distinctly when we went to one of the maps like that you mentioned before, and you were just saying like this, the water is to the east.
Yeah. I was like big. I was like basically what Ed was doing proper navigation.
Yeah.
Like he was actually doing it correctly. And I was doing navigation, which would have been correct if we were in a forest. and we were actually in Chicago, as I found out later. But so we're kind of like going back and forth, and we're following like both of our advices to a degree, which is obviously the worst thing that you could do. Yeah. So we're just like following this path, and we're about an hour in. Now, at this point in the story, Pat has arrived at a beautiful beach on the Great Lakes, and he's hanging out there with 2 lovely ladies. And we are increasingly lost.
We're increasingly lost and increasingly frustrated.
Yeah.
Like the ire between you and Ed has only gotten stronger.
We're getting like angrier because like someone's gotten us lost and it must be the other person because it can't be me. And so so the hole is getting deeper and and no one's willing to turn back because we're all right.
Because we're all so proud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're not guilty of this. Yeah, I'll just emphasize that you're just like, I don't care if we die out here because it's still better than going back to the base. Yeah. Whereas Ed and I are willing to die on this cross of righteousness. So we're just walking, and it's getting worse and worse in terms of the scenery. We're in the nice part of Chicago. That's where we're staying. Girls are at the beach. Pat's having a grand old time, fucking splashing fresh water up on his fucking naked body, having a grand old fucking time. Naked women all around.
Chicago is known for its nude beaches.
Yeah, it's just a thing. And we leave like that part of the city where there's just like naked women abound, and then we somehow find ourselves in a place where, the restaurants are shittier. Then there's no restaurants. And then like you begin to enter into an area where there's just like no housing. And then there's just abandoned buildings. And we're walking for hours and hours and hours.
You walked all the way to Detroit?
And honestly, by the time we got to the end, and we reached a point where we're honestly, I don't know how it got this far, but other than our foolish pride, but we reach a point where we're like straight up like in South Chicago, like in the hood.
The street was named Jesse White Way, and I remember
Jesse White Way, and I remember very specifically. We reached a point where most of the buildings had been bulldozed,
right?
But there was a building that was standing, and it had a mural of MLK on it, and it was it stood out.
Yeah,
it was noticeable. And that was also the point, and this is the only thing that I can say shitty about Ed, because I was the one who got us to this point. I was the one who fucked it up. But this is the only point where Ed did something stupid. He was so frustrated with me and my stubbornness that I knew the right way, that at one point, he goes, I forget the exact context, but he took off his belt and he's like, this is a $200 belt, and I'll bet you that this is the wrong spot.
Wow.
And there was some black man across the street who just his eyes bugged out.
He was fast asleep before he said that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, we're fucked.
I remember distinctly, we ran into one of the buildings that had graffiti on it, and it said, "Kill Whitey."
Yeah.
And the second we all saw that, it was just like, oh, yeah.
Roll them up.
Yeah.
We're fucked. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm tired of you two bitching.
Yeah.
We're turning around, and we're going the way we can.
It's amazing we got that far, to be quite honest. And the fact that we were, not for nothing, not to toot our fucking horns, but, first of all, And like, you've gotten through this story unscathed. You're the smartest one out of us. And you don't say a fucking word. We're walking into the goddamn devil's lair, and you're just like, yeah, this is great.
It seemed like the base to me. It also seemed like the base.
It was.
Like, there's nothing wrong here.
It was so ridiculous. I mean, we were walking. It was like fucking cobblestone that we're walking on.
Yeah.
It was so fucking absurd. And then the walk back was so long.
Yeah.
Because of the shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame that really weighs you down.
Yeah, it really was the shame at that
You
point.
might as well had 30 pounds of coat on you.
Yeah, right. And then it was great because when we fucking finally got back and we had this, it was hours and hours and hours. And we had this whole fucking journey and we went deep into the fucking hood of fucking Shy City. All this fucking shit happened and what have you. And we get back there and we're like exhausted and worn. And like even you just got done with fucking boot camp and all this bullshit and you looked fine after that, but now you're fucking worn, you know? And Pat looks at all of us like we just fucking got out of goddamn Vietnam and he's like, what the fuck happened? You know? And we tell him like, well, we tried to go to blank and that didn't happen. And we're like, what'd you do? And he's like, I went to the beach with the girls. It was really nice. We
got
got there
snow
like,
cones.
like 8 hours ago. And it's like we had popcorn. And like, he just had like a great fucking day.
There were kittens all over the beach.
Oh
and
my
we played
God,
with
he
them.
just had like the best day ever. And it was like, and he was so smug about it because he's smart enough to not like overplay that fucking angle.
Right,
but it
right.
was like that. Oh, it was so good. It was so fucking good. And we had a shitty day.
We had a
because-
shitty day, but that trip in itself was still fine because Chicago has a lot of good places to eat.
Oh,
Lou
that's
Malnati's,
true, yeah.
Harry Caray's. I know we hit those places up.
Yeah. Well, Harry Caray's was great because we met, you remember that story? We met fucking,
Well,
that wasn't that story.
I was not. No, that's
That was
that
a different
involves
one. There yet.
them. I was not there. I have not been. I've only been to back to Chicago once since A school. And that was when I flew to O'Hare to rent a car so I could drive to South Bend to see Navy get blown out by Notre Dame in South Bend. That's it.
What I will add there, Lou Mitchell's.
Yes,
Oh,
Lou
Lou
Mitchell's
Mitchell's,
is also
yeah.
another one.
Lou
breakfast
Mitchell's for the
spot.
fucking breakfast.
Breakfast,
Oh,
yeah.
Just
yeah.
standing in line in that place is fucking delightful.
So let's fast forward a little bit to 2012.
Was it
Her-
then, huh?
It was.
Yeah.
Hurricane Sandy. No, I guess. Oh, so no.
It was
this
after
would have been,
Sandy.
This would have been
A little bit
2013. End of January, beginning of February 2013. Moses and I now enter the picture. And we take, this time, no train, no nothing like that. We
Drive a ramshackle
You drive a
Ford van.
Ford
Ford
E150.
E150 Econoline cargo van.
It was custom.
It was custom.
There was a pink love seat in the back.
I sat in the
Maroon.
pink love seat.
Was it maroon?
Oh, no, it was definitely maroon. It was darker. It was darker. Myself and our buddy Roger, we'll call him for all intents and purposes,
And we've-
sat in a love seat that was ratchet strapped down into
We used
the back.
Yeah.
we used ratchet straps to just make it not move.
Make it not move.
Took out the back seat. Like, there was a third seat originally in it, but we took it out for other
I think we sold it for money because we needed it.
Well, you should have. It
oh,
was,
well,
a,
the
it was a
seat, yeah.
cargo van for the business.
No, but the seat we sold.
Yes. Yeah.
We're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, all right.
It had the front seats and like what you call the second row seats.
And a bench seat.
A
yeah.
bench seat. Yeah.
Or no, there were two separate seat, like co-captains. I don't know what they call them.
Whatever, yeah.
So basically, there's a handful of years later from this trip that they just spoke about, we decide we're going to drive the work van to Chicago. There's like, I don't know, maybe like 6 of us or something. Do the drive. Whoa, you know what? Actually, I'm going to catch myself because there's a story at the beginning of this. We all meet up. And we're short a friend that doesn't show up, doesn't answer his phone. And for some reason, we go decide to find said friend.
Try and hunt him down.
Yeah,
This
we
was the
went
start of the journey.
south to go northwest.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember you guys actually hitting me up. You were like, "Do you know where he is?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Why would
"No."
I know that?
Yeah, why would I know where he is?
Yeah.
You were trying to like hunt him down without knowing exactly
Yeah.
where his house is.
Listen
Yeah.
up, people. We have a fugitive. I want a hard target search.
We went several towns away. Like, we knew the town he lived in,
Generally, where he lived.
the subsection he lived in.
I think
Robert.
Who else knew where the hell he... Like, they've been to his house
There was a couple
once.
people that
Yeah.
generally knew but could not distinctly
Yeah.
pinpoint
Yeah.
where his house was.
Yeah. Seen it but couldn't pin it down.
Yeah. So like, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but like we searched around in this subsection.
We
of
spent
town.
like an hour looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good 45 before we just finally gave up.
And then stopped at a Roy Rogers.
Yeah.
For like the last bastion of, well,
to
I
wait.
guess he's not coming.
Yeah.
Should be a sponsor, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roy Rogers, hit us up. We'll show some love.
Yeah. And then eventually had to be like, well,
Yeah. Hitting that
on
dusty trail.
to Chicago, I guess.
He eventually got back to us when we were.
We were in Chicago.
Wasn't it? Was that when? I thought it happened like
We were
halfway
damn
through the
near.
It was
We
a
were
minute
damn
later.
near.
He
Yeah.
had been in AC the whole time.
Yeah, he just slept in.
Yeah, he passed out in a hotel room in AC.
Yeah.
He just wasn't home at all. So even if we had found it,
Yeah, we wouldn't
mattered.
have gotten him.
Yeah.
So we spent a good chunk. We ended up going to Chicago hours later than we initially planned.
Yep.
And ended up having to drive through the night and ended up at the hotel, which I believe was the Intercontinental on the
It
Miracle
was.
Mile.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
we got there. I think it was early morning.
2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
I believe. Somehow, some way, they got us situated through like a side door.
Yeah.
Yeah, they checked
distinctly
us in
remember.
and everything,
Yeah.
which they really shouldn't have.
I booked that through that fancy fucking shit that I
the
got.
US
USB,
UBS.
UBS.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I got that fancy.
dyslexic.
I got that fancy fucking credit card.
Yeah.
So I booked it through that, and we had a concierge and all
Yeah.
that fucking bullshit.
Yeah, it was kind of wild.
Yeah, they treated us real nice.
They gave us a pack of playing cards.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Don't have to get chased by a homeless man again.
They knew.
No,
They
not
knew
there.
somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the Intercontinental, which is, it's right on the Miracle Mile.
Yeah. Prime spot.
Much higher end than we should have had any right to be staying.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that particular trip, it put us right on the Miracle Mile with easy access. And this was a fairly long trip. We were there for like 6 or 7 days.
Yeah.
And I'm,
We were there for
I'm
a
including
bit, yeah.
travel, but like, that's a long time.
Oh yeah. It was plenty of time there. Yeah.
I
And,
think on the way there, I read the entirety of the Deadpool run.
That
'Cause I was
kind of-
just reading comics the entire time on my computer.
So, like, we also didn't have a plan or any big things we wanted to see or
There
anything
was
like that.
one thing we were going to. I forget what the place was called. They had just all kinds of knickknacks and things that we had. We made it a point to go to because we were buying from them for the company at the time. I can't remember what they were called, but
I don't remember what it is.
I don't remember what it is.
I don't have company affiliations. I just mooch off of you fuckers.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember anything about that. So also, like, pay in mind and keep it in the back of your head that we had to park the cargo van there for our entire time.
Oh, that was a fortune. Yeah. I don't remember that.
It was.
Can we describe what the van looked like, or is
I mean,
that-
it was a white E-Series
This
cargo
is
van.
before. This is before Bob crashed it.
Well, yeah,
Right.
but what it like actually like because
It looked like a fucking rapist van.
Yes, yes, yes.
If you wrote ordinary van on it.
Yeah.
It was fucking janky as shit. Yeah.
It
Well,
was
we had the
janky
logos
ass-
on it.
It did have the company logos on it, but like that doesn't need to be particularly shared out.
Yeah.
But like, yes, it was a janky ass white van with
Yeah.
black decals on it
Yeah.
for the company.
Yeah, shady as
It
fuck.
was shady as fuck, a work van.
Yeah.
yeah.
So we get there. My love seat mate, Roger, lost several things somehow in that travel, including his license.
I don't think he brought it.
Well, he may not have brought it or lost it. It doesn't matter. We tried to go like, we're situated. We're going to go to the bar. Couldn't get into the bar first day because of he didn't have a license to get
Yeah.
into the fucking
You
bar.
needed it.
I
At
thought
least
we
that,
talked to the people at Rocket and got
at
that
the
was
end, at the end. The first 80% of the trip, we couldn't get him into any fucking bars.
Yeah. But he bowed out gracefully from that.
No, he was a champ about it.
Yeah.
In full respect.
Yeah.
But yeah.
he knew he fucked up.
Oh yeah. But like he
But
also
he did eventually find the weed.
he found his weed. He lost his weed too. I mean that love seat ate everything. It just really did.
I don't know where did he find it in the love seat?
I don't know.
He never made that clear.
No. Roger.
It was ridiculous.
All right, so like our first actual like night there, we go to it was fairly close to where we were staying, off the Miracle Mile. Local Blue Frog 22, I believe it was called.
It had a
something like
couple
that.
of different names. This is also a restaurant that was featured on one of those Restaurant Impossible or
Right,
something
right.
of that name, like
Where
something
they
like
come
that.
in, they refurbish the
yeah,
restaurant
and they had
blah, blah,
just been like redone in maybe 6 months ago. So this was a new, like it was still the old place, but it was refurbished and put into
Probably
I guess in a
getting
better
some of-
a better setup than whatever they were before.
It was fun, yeah.
It became a sort of home base for us a little
Yeah.
bit. Like we did, I mean, obviously we went around a lot. We did a lot of fucking walking. Oh, you remember walking maybe like 2 or 3 days in?
Trying to find hash or hash
Oh,
house
no,
a go-go.
no, not
Oh,
yeah, but
yeah.
we're gonna walk to the Lincoln Park Zoo.
Oh, yeah.
For a little bit of context, this is like fucking February.
It's beginning of January,
Yeah.
like, getting into February.
And like it was fucking cold as shit, but like unseasonably
Unseasonably
warm for them.
Yeah.
So we do the whole walk from like Miracle Mile all the way up through Lincoln Park to go to the Lincoln Park Zoo. What did we see? One animal?
One animal. Yeah, they were all the animals were moved.
They were gone. Is that not where we went to the aquarium, or is that a different day?
So there was a day where we went to like Chicago. They have like all their museums and their aquarium all in like a central
Section.
part of the city. Yeah.
When was it that we were at the Blue Frog? And
We went there a
Which
couple of
time?
times.
Well,
Yeah.
well, no, this I know.
Yeah.
What day was it that the events that I'm talking about occurred?
I want to say it was a Thursday.
Jeez.
Because it was a karaoke thing, and it was either a
Your
Wednesday or a
karaoke
Thursday.
thing was baller.
I
hate to praise you because you're a piece of shit, but that was great.
Yeah.
I had the party jumping.
As we mentioned, it was kind of like it was close enough to our hotel that if you were all bleary-eyed and drunk, you could find your way back.
It was maybe a block or two away.
Yeah,
something
very close.
like that.
It is the place, and we have mentioned it before, so we won't go into full detail on it, the Turquoise Pants Girl Night.
Yes.
Of punk and turquoise pants, if you want to hear
Yes.
the story.
Yeah.
If you want to recap.
Yeah, go check out that
We'll wait.
episode. That really goes into detail in that
I
particular
want to tell it
aspect.
again.
Well, let me
I
jump
feel
in.
like it needs
Yeah,
to be.
Dan, please jump in.
Well, because you guys had mentioned the Blue Frog had been on a TV show.
Yeah.
It was Bar Rescue.
Bar rescue.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Season 1, episode 6, in case anybody
Wow.
out there wants to check it out because it's on Paramount Plus. The Blue Frog sings the blues.
Wow.
Okay.
I don't remember so much of the blues, but
No, because I only found that out after we had
Yeah.
gotten back, and I was watching the cooking shows and bullshit that I watch, and I was just like, oh, I've been there, and it was just like a week ago.
It's funny that you saw it after the fact, too, because this came out August 21st of 2021. So it actually came out before you guys had gone there. So
2021.
No, we went there.
I mean, 2011, excuse me.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't watching those shows at that point, so they would never cross my mind.
Yeah. I guess the full name of it is the Blue Frog 2022.
Blue Frog
Oh,
22, and then it has like a secondary, like local
There was-
something, blah,
Yeah, it
blah,
was
blah, blah,
local.
blah.
I think that was
Yeah.
their original name,
Yeah.
and then they changed it, and
It's a
that's why
Blue
it's
Frog 22.
like the locals associated, like just amalgamated the two names.
Right.
And,
I'm reading the synopsis of this. Bar expert John Taffer
Taffer, yeah.
Yep.
attempts to get the Blue Frog 22, a failing bar in Chicago, to grow up. To do that, he'll need the mother and son owners to ditch the mom's basement aesthetic that's dragging them down. I already don't like the show.
it's not it's a show, and like if you could get past John Taffer, it's okay.
Let's get to the hits.
This might be a double episode.
All right. Do you guys remember going to Harry Caray Steakhouse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of like a block down from
Yeah.
our like
100%.
local hangout.
This was like the last night or the last day.
a couple days, yeah. Maybe.
I think it was close to the end of our
it was close
trip.
to the end of
Yeah.
our trip. So for those of you youngins who don't know who Harry Caray is, famous Chicago sports broadcaster, kind of wacky. Definitely, if you ever seen the SNL skits,
Will Ferrell.
Yeah, Will Ferrell. He always did the seventh inning stretch, take me out to the ball game.
Exactly. Yeah. At that point, he'd already been dead for some time.
Yeah.
But he famously has a steakhouse there in Chicago, about 2 blocks out to the west of the Miracle Mile, in the area that we pretty much adopted as our home. And we're gonna have a very expensive night and go to Harry Caray's Steakhouse. So we do. We get all gussied up and shit, and we're actually all gussied up still, not gussied up enough, really.
Yeah, we were a little underdressed.
Slumming it. Yeah.
Whatever, we could afford it.
Yeah, wait online, the whole thing. Eventually, we get let in and pretty much put in like a faraway corner to eat. And like I said, this is 2012, and like steaks were like $60, $70,
Which was
steak
standard
without
fare.
side.
That's standard fare, at the time.
And like I distinctly remember this because it's so funny to me. We're tucked away in a corner, like a pseudo long table that we're sitting, and like we order our wildly expensive steaks.
No.
And like, they were fine. Like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there bullshitting. But
We
like,
had a great waiter.
we had a very good waiter. And then this super crotchety old lady get seated at
Behind us.
Well, yeah, kind of like in the corner.
Yeah, in the corner,
itself.
like to our.
She's seated at a table that's too big for one person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's right next to us.
Yes, and she's being sassy as fuck.
to the same waiter.
To the
and
same waiter.
Yeah.
They have a banter going on as if it was just some kind of like old sitcom from the 70s.
That's exactly right. I'll chime in on that.
Please.
The waiter is an old black man, and
Yeah.
she's like an old white lady, and she's just like, go and get me the potatoes. And he's like, oh, I don't know if you're going to be able to eat them without choking on them. You want me to chew them up for you first? And she's like, maybe you just go and get them. But it's just like a back and forth like this. And you don't really know what the fuck is happening.
It's uncomfortable if you don't know like
We're all
what was
being
actually
fairly
going on.
quiet and just shooting like side eyes to the situation.
It feels like they're just being fit dicks to each other,
Yeah.
but you don't know.
So like, we continue our meal and like that whole situation's going on. And I can't remember how the first interaction happened, but we were talking maybe about Hurricane Sandy or something like that. I can't really remember, but she chimed in and asked where we were from.
And we had a female friend with us on this trip who she took a liking to because she was the only female.
She was
in a
the
group
only
of
girl
guys.
with us,
Yeah, so she's like, "Oh, how do you keep all your men in line?"
Yeah.
or something to that effect.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of yucks, but like we weren't being like, listen, this is our first time interacting with this lady. It's just, as far as we know at this moment, just some crazy bitch that.
Some rich old lady like Miss fucking Havisham.
I'll
is, like,
chime
sitting
in
over
on
there.
that as well, because like some of that back and forth like began to unfold where she's like, she says to our lady friend, how you deal with this and so on and so forth. And that same waiter, because he was serving both of these tables, he's serving the old lady and he's serving us. And he comes over, and there was one point where he definitely came over to our table, and he was like, "Listen, she's crazy.
Yeah.
She's out of her mind.
He did go
Just
up. He's
ignore
like, "Is this
her."
old lady bothering you?"
Yeah, exactly. And she's sitting there like making eyes at him, and she's just like, and he's just like playing it off like this is just some crazy bitch who comes to the goddamn restaurant. So just make it okay,
So like she's bullshitting with our lady friend that had the balls to come with us on this fucking trip. It just comes out. She's like, "Oh yeah, Harry Caray, I'm his widow." Like just straight up, and we're all like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Basically,
like,
she's
what?
saying, "I own this restaurant.
I own this.
This is
fucking
my
place."
restaurant that you're at." Yeah.
And then continued to buy us all desserts.
We were each paying like $80 for like our meal, individually.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, and we were like getting ready to go. We weren't going to order dessert or anything.
No.
And she's like, "Oh, you guys can't leave without having dessert." And we're like, trying to like a slice of cheesecake was like $18.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She bought the entire dessert. Well, not bought, but whatever.
Yeah, she got
gifted us the entire.
She
dessert
saw to
menu.
it that we were treated very well.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was fucking awesome.
We got the entire dessert menu brought to the table, like one of each. And
it
then,
was
like, she
delightful.
brought the head chef out to talk to us.
Yeah,
and shit.
that's right. Yeah, he
It
fucking
was
came out
bizarre,
talked
and
to
it's
us,
just
yeah.
like we don't know what to say.
Yeah,
It
we
was
were like, she treated
it's
us like we were
good.
classy people, but it wasn't the case.
We were totally out of our element, Donnie.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite things about, like, that trip was great, don't get me wrong, but, like, I will always remember that. Just the weird interaction, how crass she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, how how alike she was with us.
Yeah.
Because we were cracking like dick and fart jokes
Oh,
ourselves.
absolutely.
Well,
And she did it too.
She did exactly what we do all the time, but she did it with such a tremendous amount of class.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what it was. Like, she never, like, broke character. She was cool as a fucking cucumber the whole fucking time. And, like, the waiter who obviously they were friends.
Yeah.
And he's, like, talking shit to her. And it's, like, these, like, low-key insults where he's like, you're talking to, like, this crazy old lady. She doesn't know what's happening around her. and she would be like, oh, I'm really sorry.
He says that to us loud enough that she
could
hears
hear it. Yeah. And then he would say, like, he would like kick back, or in either direction. And it would just be like, you got the worst waiter in this place. I'm really sorry. This guy doesn't remember what's happening around him. He's just a terrible fucking waiter.
Yeah, he's
he's sitting there and he's like listening to it, and you're looking at him and they're having their own
thing.
conversation.
Yeah.
And it's clearly a conversation they have all the time.
Yep.
And it was delightful to be a part of it. That's really what it was.
That was the thing. That was the cool
but
shit.
that was only appreciated in retrospect once we found out who she was.
Well, yeah,
because we're all like, oh, why is this lady treating this guy so bad?
Yeah,
And
Well, it was very
Then
much
it
like,
was-
this lady city's fucking
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Like, how haven't they kicked her out yet?
Yeah.
It's like, well, they can't because she owns it.
Yeah, and that's just it. That's the beauty of it. Because not for nothing, like if somebody, fucking showed up here, and I'm like, why do these people talk to each other this way? They hate each other, But it was along those lines where it's like, man, I'm sorry that you have to hang
Yeah, it was
out
a
with that piece
camaraderie
of
of
shit,
sort. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Chicago, like their World History Museum, their
Oh, we went to the
aquarium, art museum. They're all like a complex. We decided, we want to go to the technology museum.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it was.
And tried to walk there in the rain,
Yeah.
knowing it was far, but not really accepting the fact that it was far.
Yeah.
We had
In its own place.
a grand misconception of distance at that point.
Yeah, and also the L line that went down there was closed.
Yeah.
So we just kept walking south
Yeah.
in that direction for a long time and just eventually had to say fuck it and piled all like 6 of us into the back of a cab,
Yeah.
laying
was-
across each other's laps and
Was,
shit.
that was to the aquarium.
No.
I thought we got out of the aquarium and piled out like a goddamn clown
No,
car.
because the aquarium was the day one in the museum complex. The technology, I can't remember what the actual name. It's the place that has a fucking U-boat in the basement.
I was going to say that's the U-boat place.
Yeah. Which was awesome.
That was super cool.
I can't remember the boat designation. If you asked me 5 years ago, I probably would. I
It
can't
was a
remember
fucking
now.
Nazi U-boat.
Yeah. One of the few, very few of like 2 or 3 ever captured.
Yeah.
Wild to go into. Very cool if you ever get the chance. We also went down a faux mine shaft.
Yeah. Yeah. It was super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably the best museum there.
That was, honestly, it's one of my favorite museums that I've ever been to.
Yeah.
But the ride there, in and of itself, that was, I mean, to say that we all piled in.
No, we piled
is an
in.
understatement.
Yeah.
We basically, so it was like we got this cab driver who didn't have enough room for us.
Right.
But it was made clear that he would be tipped well.
Yes,
And he
yes.
was just basically,
He's like,
he didn't even say yeah. He just kind of nodded.
Yeah.
And we all just found our way in,
We
just
were
rats.
back seat, like 4 wide, sitting shoulder to shoulder in the back seat with 2 people laterally.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Oh,
in-
people
in
are
the
laying
empty
down.
space.
Yeah. And we finally got there. I think we gave him some crazy
Wild,
tip, which he
wild.
more than deserved.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to deal with our bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's nothing to do except for talk.
No. We were the assholes, and we brought him into
Yeah,
our
exactly, yeah.
douchebaggery.
Yeah. It was probably the highlight of his day.
Oh, my God. And, Chicago is just such a great city. We've even gone back since then. What was that, 2 years ago?
Something to that effect, yeah.
As older, not so much wiser men, but we brought our significant others at the time with us. We didn't get in as much trouble that time.
Nah.
No, of course
The
not.
women prevent that.
Yes, and rightfully
We did drink out of a clamshell though.
We did do a clamshell thing. We could take a picture of it.
Yeah, we'll post it. We'll post it up when this
of
releases.
the
I'll let you describe how that
Yes.
unfolded because I feel like that's a fun
well,
story.
we went to this place that I think it was called the Hampton. Or
It was
Yeah,
called
there's
the Hamptons.
something like that.
It was modeled off of what Chicago people think that
The
Hamptons
Hamptons
are
are.
like.
Oh, I've never been
in
to the
New York.
Hamptons, so maybe
I've
they're
never
right.
been to the Hamptons either.
So maybe that is what it's like. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
very.
It was
hoity.
very white and sterile.
It was very
Very sterile.
sterile because we drank out of a clamshell that almost resembled a urinal.
How did we get to the clamshell though? That's
Well,
the
they
important part of it.
had a series of drinks, and this was it was hard to describe, but on
your best.
their menu they had the descriptions. They also had comments and reviews from people that have had these
Yeah,
things.
on the menu, which is
I'm gonna stop you then. I'm gonna stop you because you're leaving out a part of this, so I will interject. I arrived at the conclusion that I wanted. It was like pepper and it was some
It
sort
was
of.
I thought it was like a mezcal. Was it
was a
a
smoky
tequila
mezcal.
drink?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
supposed to be like a smoky mezcal. And I was like, I want that. And they had 2 different options. They had that you could get the regular drink, and that was whatever it was. Let's just say it's $10.
In a cup. Yeah, I
Right,
think it was
in a
in a
regular
cup.
glass, right? Or you could get their bigger one, and it was supposed to be 3 times as much for twice the price. So I was like, well, I know I'm going to have
Yeah.
fucking a million drinks here. So, let me get the big guy. And I ordered that from the waitress. I think I was one of the first people to order. And and she had somebody supervising her. She was in training or
She
something.
was
Oh,
a
yeah,
new
yeah, yeah.
waitress at that establishment. Yeah.
And at first he said yes, and then the boss was like, no, you can't do that. And then we're like, okay, you have to
You have to
can
share it.
only get that if you're sharing it with somebody. And so that's when I looked at you, because obviously we're lovers. And
I thought it was because we're alcoholics.
that too. And you were like, oh, yeah, I'll totally get that. So we decided to get the big one. And then she was like, okay, fine. I guess that's acceptable. And it was definitely with some there was some fucking side-eyeing going.
But we also tried to order our own drinks as well.
Just it. She then then she was like, okay, I got your drink. So then she kind of skipped you and you were like, I would actually
I want this gin honey thing or whatever.
And then the boss lady was like, I'm sorry, you just got a drink. And then you realized that you were roped into my fucking bandwagon. And so we ended up getting the drink that we shared.
Yes.
So now I'll let you pick that up.
There'll be a lovely picture posted of that. It was.
How do you describe it?
In the reviews, it was described as drinking out of a urinal, but the fluid was that of an ashtray.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was something.
It was something to that. I'm sure you could look it up if you can figure out exactly where we went and what it was called and what we got. But it was not good. It was.
Can you describe what it was given to us in?
Like, if you've ever been to Home Goods and they got all that silly shit that you would, like a typical Karen would put just as decoration, and you would put probably like marbles or something like that, and maybe something else, but it's just like kind of a centerpiece.
You're really burying the lead. What did it look like?
It was red, full of ice, and a iridescent clamshell.
It was a giant.
It was a giant clamshell, but
it was a giant clamshell.
And
we got served the drink, and
it looked like a urinal. It tasted like a urinal cake with ashes, like cigarettes put out.
I didn't even try it, and I was sitting next to you guys, and I could smell.
They brought us out a clamshell.
Yeah,
they brought us out a probably 18 inches in width.
Yeah, I'd say.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a gigantic fucking fake clamshell.
Yeah.
It
was made of porcelain or something.
It was
breakable quality like
bullshit. Yeah. And
we sucked it down just so we could get the drinks that we wanted.
We got 2 straws.
No,
we did have 2 straws.
You guys had 2 straws, and you were very cute. It was nice.
It was adorable.
That's why we have that picture.
That drink reeked.
It didn't taste good either.
It didn't taste good. And also, on top of that, like when and this is something that I never thought that I would have to say out loud, but when you're drinking out of a clamshell, you can't get the last bits of alcohol
because it doesn't actually, like it has a bottom, but it's just like a spread out bottom.
It's not a proper glass.
It's like drinking a drink off a plate.
Yeah, you're not wrong, actually.
That is what it kind of became.
Yeah.
And it was
stupid.
It was
was stupid.
Stupid. We had like the 3 boys sitting on this side of the table, and the 3 girls are sitting on the other side of the table. I essentially was guilty by association.
Yeah, oh yeah, you got fucking drunk.
You were trying to distance yourself so much, but
I was having like a gin and tonic.
The funny thing about that though is that they were like so upset that we were bringing this level of depravity to their like
we weren't dressed up for this place.
Yeah, we weren't dressed up for it. But like the bottom line is that all that we really wanted to do was just to get drunk and mind our own fucking business. And instead they forced us to have this
to be
drink
what
for
we
2.
are.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden you've got 2 assholes that you didn't want to hear in the first place, and you gave them a clamshell to share. That's on you.
Yeah,
that's 100% on you. And now we're like slurping the bottom of it and making those fucking noises out of the straw.
And trying to do it quickly because we wanted our own drink.
We did want our own drinks, yeah. And honestly, that drink was terrible.
It was.
Yeah.
Every other drink there, perfectly great.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. They were like your typical like quasi fancy bar. These are our signature cocktail type shit.
Yeah.
But that drink smelled so bad, guys. So bad.
They
it was
did that.
So smoky.
All that they wanted was for us to leave, and instead what they did
made us stay longer.
Hand myself and Moses a goddamn clamshell filled with some sort of a disgusting goddamn concoction.
It was pink or red in nature,
and now
wasn't it?
we fucking
it was. I think it was essentially like a shitty Paloma.
Yeah, that's all that it was.
It was like mezcal and like some sort of like
and toilet
grapefruit
cakes.
juice and like fucking bullshit.
And we're just there in the middle of the fucking restaurant, just go.
And then when we were done, because she didn't come around fast enough, because I guess she assumed we were going to take our time with this.
Oh, we were done with that.
No, we were done with it as soon as she put it down.
Yeah.
And then we were just like everybody else is having their drink and whatever little hors d'oeuvres and whatever that we got, and we're just sitting there, no drink at all.
Yeah.
and it's like there's only so much water I could drink.
Yeah.
And they're
Zero.
So time to make noise and make a spectacle because that's how you get somebody to the table.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they were quick to respond after that.
It was strange though. So like we had a waitress that was being trained by another waitress.
Yeah, and that.
So it's like the trainees seemed like fine. It was like the hoity-toity like trainer waitress that was like,
no, you got to abide by the restaurant rules.
Yeah.
And that lady, the original waitress, was like, "Oh,
Whatever.
fine, yeah, you can both have one. I don't give a shit."
Yeah, wild.
It was simpler times.
Yeah. Well, it should have been.
All right, any hits you want to hit as we get towards the end of this of like what we love about Chicago? You want to talk about a deep dish?
The only other thing that I could really like add in, I mean, I personally love a deep dish pizza, so I love Lou Malnati's there. Lou
Malnati's great.
It became a chain, so it's not as good as it used to be, but I love that. I will say from our most recent visit, one thing that stood out to me was when we went up to the top of that tower.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
very lackluster, and even more lackluster than it would have been if it was full operation, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, for me personally, I didn't dislike it. Like, it was enjoyable for what it was.
It was neat.
I liked being able to see, you know, the bird's eye view of the city type thing.
Well,
a lot of it was a gimmick, and a lot of it was not as advertised.
That was the first time in my life that I ever felt any sort of sickness from wobbling, like being at the top of a tower.
Well, my wife and I did the tilt thing that they had. It's like a pseudo amusement ride.
You like
where
lean
the
out.
window kind of like pushes out to like 15 degrees, and it
feels like you're hanging out over the side of the building.
It has that, and it was just the view that you had was like, of course, you're so high up, you see a majority of the city.
Yeah.
But what it's pointing right down to was like their loading bay.
Right.
And it's just like, well, not that I was expecting anything better, but it could have just been a street, like the back end of this building.
Right. And they also advertised that they had a bar, and the bar was closed.
Oh, the bar.
Yeah.
You could only buy canned goods.
Well, that's how I kind of felt.
And those drinks were terrible.
They're
Whatever
bad,
the fuck they had. I forget
that's
what it
right.
was.
None of us
I didn't
could
even
really
drink
finish
it.
ours,
I didn't even drink the other drink.
I think I drank yours.
Yeah, you might have drank mine, and then I got a Blue Moon, and I didn't even drink that because I was just like, I don't feel like drinking anymore.
I remember when I was up there, I was like, and again, I never get like dizziness or anything like that. But I remember like I looked at it and I was like, oh man, this fucking sucks. Just like straight up. And I was like, let me just go and get drunk and then I'll feel a lot better. And then there was nothing to properly drink, which is why I drank your
Yeah, they had the actual bar closed up there because they were renovating or something because
you essentially had to buy booze from the gift shop guy that was up there.
They gave you ticket. I think they it was included in the quote unquote tour.
It was total bullshit because I actually your lady Justin told me to go and like scope it out. So like, and I was like in such a mind where I was like, I'm gonna fucking break in.
Yeah.
So like I went over there and I was like looking through the glass and I was like, somebody came over and like told me to stop doing what I was doing. So I was like, oh, okay, my bad. I didn't know what I was doing. But then I wandered back over towards you guys and I still had fucking nothing to drink. It was brutal.
It was tough. It was tough. But still love you, Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Don't do the tourist trap things.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to Blue Frog.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. Yeah.
It's not there?
No, we went over there. We just spent so much time on that.
Did we?
Yeah.
We
addressed it multiple times. Yeah.
I didn't know it went out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. We looked it up. It was long gone for years.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. Let's go back to Chicago, though.
Always looking to go back to Chicago.
I'm way into that, yeah.
Much easier to fly.
We could get one of those martinis with sweet vermouth.
Oh, my God. We didn't even talk about
Close it off on that.
That was rough.
Yeah. Listen, one last one for the road. Send us off on that fucking bullshit story.
Oh, well, this was your drink that it was like the third bar we went to on this third trip, I think. And you went and got a martini. You assumed it was going to be a martini.
Ordered a martini. Yeah.
And I think it was a new bartender.
It was some fucking person who clearly didn't know what they were doing.
But
and
it's
they
a
put
martini.
goddamn sweet vermouth in there.
And that was the first time I knew of sweet vermouth.
You used that to make Manhattan.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were aghast by the taste of whatever
disgusting.
you got. And I tried them like, nope, I'm done.
It was fucking gross. Honestly, I don't know how it could taste that bad, but it did.
It shouldn't have tasted as bad as it tasted.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Because it's still like debatable alcohol.
Yeah.
You know?
But no, it was bad. Because sweet vermouth shouldn't be drank by itself, and that's kind of what that was.
That kind of what, they almost left out the vodka, or I don't know what kind you were getting.
It was
a vodka or
disgusting.
gin.
It was,
Whatever, it
they
was
made
horrible.
they made a vodka and sweet vermouth. It was gross.
Well, it completely eliminated the vodka taste
Let's go back there and live like fancy people. That's the way to do it.
out of
There we go.
clamshells.
We're
Out
gonna
of clamshells.
Out of clamshells. We can do that.
Am I even allowed to go back? Van Halen's not around anymore.
I know. It's tough.
The answer is no, Dan.
Nah, David Lee Roth's probably on tour.
No, he's not. And you wouldn't want to hear that anyway.
I went to go see him, but we'll save that for another one.
We did end up bitching a little bit towards the end there, but we're just telling you the things to avoid. Chicago's a great fucking city.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got great food there. I'll say that.
Look for Antoine.
Who's that?
You motherfucker. I'm
Oh,
amazed you
shit,
remember his name.
What? Antoine was great.
You don't remember anything else about this, but you remember somebody's fucking name?
Yeah, the bouncer that got us into the Blue Frog.
God damn it.
What? He was great. I'm
was.
sorry.
Antoine.
You spent most of your time talking to some homeless man about Prometheus, which was remarkable in it of itself. But Antoine was great. Yeah, he was
That
driving with
homeless
us.
man knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, it was weird because he's homeless, but he's seen Prometheus, which at the time I think just came out.
Yeah. Well, he was abreast of his films.
Well,
Yeah.
if Moses can remember his name, you can remember to subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Check us out on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure that you like, comment, share, and hit that notification bell. Follow us on social media. We are at Loud and Drunk on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you enjoyed this podcast, then become a Loud and Drunk supporter at loudanddrunk.locals.com and patreon.com/loudanddrunk. So, for Justin, Moses, and Robert Lamb, I'm Dan. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, this was Loud and Drunk.
Yeehaw!
Bye.